Como, and it's time for Wingin It Wednesday.
The beautiful people have joined us in the studio.
Yes, Carol Ross, Mike Stagg joining us in studio. We're without Warren Cottle today.
No crying, but he will be back. He just had a lot of stuff he had to take care of.
Yeah, he'll be back next week.
We should be punished for making us make our own coffee. We had to make our own coffee.
I'm sorry. I thought about it at like 5 o'clock, and then I forgot. So I apologize for that.
Yay.
Did it come out okay?
Mm.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let me ask you. We can't see this. Maybe we'll take a picture of you. Are you going with the whole, like it's going to be cold this winter theme? Because you got the whole beard going and everything.
Or is it just for November?
No, it's November. It started in October.
In Mardi Gras.
I was working on a TV project, and I was on a really hard deadline. And so I didn't shave for about a week. And then I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was shocked at how white my beard was. I said, "Oh my God, let me see how this goes."
Santa Claus. So okay, well I was just kind of curious if there was a theme with it or anything.
No.
It sounds like busy work, huh?
It was then. It was then. Now it's just kind of curiosity.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our topics here. And Mike, we're going to go ahead and start with you on this first question. Is the U.S. response to the Paris terrorist attacks and ISIS enough? Is it appropriate?
Well, I think you have to understand, first of all, ISIS is not a country. It's an organization. It's obviously a ruthless organization, a brutal organization. But, I think the question is, what is a nation-state's response to basically a terrorist organization? I think that what we're seeing now with the United States, Russia, France, and I think we're going to see other NATO nations involved, other European nations involved, is basically an intense airstrike campaign against them. I think if we learned anything over the last 15 years is that putting troops on the ground in the Middle East is not a wise move for anybody. We can't really afford another $1 trillion of money one way or the other to be spent in the Middle East, but with troops on the ground. And I don't think we can afford the luxury of sending our people there. So I think that basically a intense targeted response to them is appropriate. I think the thing to understand is that the people who carried out the attacks in Paris were all Europeans. They were not from the Middle East. They were European nationals, and so ISIS claims responsibility. Everybody gives them responsibility. No doubt they inspired these people, but I think that to understand what's going on over there is that again, these were European nationals that they carried out these attacks with probably inspiration and coordination with ISIS. But this is a terrorist organization, very much like Al Qaeda. There's no place to go. There's no country to go to occupy to hold them.
All right, now to Carol Ross.
Well, they're doing their best to occupy territory all over the Middle East, and the president's response demonstrates, really a stunning disconnect. There he was Friday morning on Good Morning America, and George Stephanopoulos asked him, is ISIS gaining strength? And he says, oh no, we've contained them. This is his continuing mantra that is so out of touch with reality. So just a few hours later, ISIS stages this very coordinated, deadly attack in Paris. These were radical Muslims. They may be of European nationals, but they're of other philosophy, not the European, as one of Parisian said, we are an open, loving city. This is not us. And just a few weeks after the suicide bombings, this all came, we had suicide bombings in Beirut. We had the Russian airliner bombing just recently. And this is after Charlie Hebdo and the killings at the Jewish deli. Right here at home, there was an ISIS-inspired attack in California. That young man, they found he was following ISIS on the Internet. And then by the way, last week the FBI arrested an ISIS agent, Terrence McNeil, in Akron, Ohio, who was planning, and this was found out, that he was planning to murder U.S. service members. And in fact, FBI Director Comey earlier in the month revealed that there are now 900 active investigations of ISIS operatives inside the United States. So, Mr. President, really, you think we've contained them? You think this is a proper response? What's that saying? There are none so blind as those who will not see. And I think that is our president. The one thing I've said over and over, the only thing worse than his domestic policies is foreign policy. And now to Mike.
Well, again, the whole thing here is, as some of Andrew Brusevich, who was leading military analysts, pointed out, that whack-a-mole is not a strategy. That what what the great powers, so-called great powers, are all engaged in right now is a whack-a-mole strategy in the Middle East to go hit ISIS where they pop up. The fact is that ISIS is the product of a long history of European and Western involvement in the affairs of the Middle East, drawing lines, creating nations, deciding who lives where and who controls what where. And I think that the use of military force is what created the conditions that created ISIS. Just like it was the use of military force in Afghanistan that created Al-Qaeda. And these are our one-time clients, just like Al-Qaeda was. Osama bin Laden was a result of the United States
has no relation to what's going on today. ISIS is totally outside the norm of what's going on in the Middle East. Even the Middle East,
they are the product of people that we armed in insurgencies in other countries.
Do you agree, disagree? 232-1542.
Well, go ahead, Bernie. Take the phone line. I'll get to it later.
Flummox.
All right, you're up first. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just listening. It's amazing to me that anybody could think it's okay to keep bringing these Syrian refugees to this country. And this whole out of control Muslim thing, it's kind of like a honeybee can only sting you once and he dies. But these people they're breeding like flies, and their ideology is nuts. And how we can be passive to that? And when your gentleman there is being passive to this thing, defending a president. This is not a political thing to me.
Really?
This is an American thing, and we can't keep taking these folks over here and not knowing who the heck they are. They come over here and get radicalized wherever it's at. I don't care where they come from.
Yeah, one more thing.
They're serving a Muslim religion, and they're getting radicalized.
Okay.
Go ahead, Carol.
We've been begged over and over again by our allies in the Middle East, by the Kurds, by the Jordanians, by others over there who will fight this if we give them the materials. We don't give them the materials. They've been begging us. The Kurds.
That's not true.
We haven't given them enough. They're just finally letting loose right now.
Enough.
The Kurds have really had a history of being able to fight this kind of thing, and we have not really given them what they have asked for. And I think that's really unfortunate. And you can trace this right back to the president's refusal to sign a status of forces agreement in Iraq, which allowed the rise of ISIS.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
Iraq would not afford the United States what they wanted, which was immunity from prosecution by Iraqi government
was very
forces.
willing to negotiate.
At the end of his term,
the president's ideology, he said he was going to get the troops out, and he was going to get the troops out no matter what. Maliki said, just give me something to take back to my parliament. I can get this done. And the president absolutely refused because of a political agenda.
You can try your revisionist history. We don't invade Iraq. You don't invade Iraq. You don't invade Afghanistan. Countries that had neither country had anything to do with 9/11, and that we just destabilized the Middle East.
Afghanistan wasn't the staging ground for 9/11. Mike, you're slightly misguided.
We invaded the country. We invaded a country because a terrorist group was there. Are you going to go invade? Are you going to go invade Syria because?
Oh, I know. You just want to everybody wants to be such isolationist.
It is the history.
This is a dangerous world without America in leadership.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
All right, let's go to the phone lines.
That message came right from Mike Stagg.
All right, let's go to the phone lines real quick, get this call in, then we have to take a break and get to our next topic, which is related to this. All right, caller, go ahead.
Yeah, I normally don't agree with about 60 to 70% of the things Mike Stagg is talking about on political issues, but I'd have to agree with him on this. The only difference is the book you guys are talking about, y'all are only reading the very end of the book. All the front pages have been torn out of the book. This ISIS thing we know today has actually evolved from something that came from Bill Clinton's first administration. And they went under a very different name then. So his lack of foreign policy, Mr. Nice Guy, but he actually armed a lot of these people because he didn't want to get involved out there. So you have a strong stance is you don't want to put boots on the ground for a cause, you shouldn't arm them either. And that's what Bill Clinton messed up on his first go round. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your call. All right, we do need to go ahead and take this break. When we come back, again, a topic related to this one as well. Governor Jindal issuing the executive order against accepting Syrian refugees in Louisiana. We'll get both panelists' thoughts on that when we come back here on Acadiana's Morning News. This is Wingin' It Wednesday. KPEL News Time is 7:28. This is Wingin' It Wednesday. Before we go to the panelists with question number 2, let's go to the phone lines first. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, caller, go ahead. Oh,
Okay,
gosh,
yeah,
you're
we're gonna
sounding
have to let that
terrible.
go.
I'm sorry. That one has to go.
All right, let's go to this one.
Speakerphones aren't good, so you're up next. Go ahead.
Am I on?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, Carol, Bernie.
Hey. Good morning.
I know a little bit about patriotism and freedom and sacrifice. My grandfather spent 25 years in the Marine Corps. My dad spent 30 years in the Marine Corps. All right. My grandmother in New York City was the original Gold Star mother, where she had a son in each branch of the service during World War II. And I can tell you, I never saw my dad growing up because he was always overseas protecting this country. We have young men and women that are willing to die to protect the weak. This country has always stood on protecting the weak and the innocent and the people that cannot defend themselves. And in my opinion, we got a make-believe president in the White House that will not take care of his business. All right? That's where the problems start. I'm telling you right now. We do not have a president in the White House that's willing to protect the interests of this country and the weak around this world. We have always stood for freedom and to protect the weak and the innocent. We have not did this since that make-believe guy got in the White House. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your call. All right, let's go ahead and go now with our next question. Is this right or wrong? Governor Jindal issues an executive order against accepting Syrian refugees in Louisiana. Is there enough vetting of anyone who comes into the United States? Carol, let's first go to you.
Legally, they probably can't do it, but there's such a growing sentiment against it, and there is so much backlash on this that they're putting bills in through Congress. Congress needs to grow a spine and cut off the funding, and I think Rand Paul is putting in some legislation to cut off the funding, and it's unbelievable, the jump in the number of refugees that were let in, a very sharp jump from last year, and even more will be coming in. They say they want 10,000. Hillary Clinton has said she wants 65,000. But who is picking these people? How are they being vetted? They are not being vetted very well, and I picked up a story off the wire last night in Investors Business Daily. You know who's vetting them? The UN High Commissioner on Refugees, along with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They're the ones who are, quote, unquote, vetting the people coming into this country. And when they say vetting, they mean we don't know who the hell these people are because there's no government left in Syria to give us any background, any records, any documents. This is a sham, and I tell you what, they should stop it absolutely immediately. I mean, when you have... you've got the governors who are just up in arms because they know when these people come in, that's it. In some areas, I think Christie was on talking about how they brought them directly into New Jersey and didn't even inform the state of New Jersey where these people were, who they were, or that they were actually
They did that in Louisiana
here. And
as
they
well.
did it in Louisiana. They brought in, 14 or 15 that we know
14.
of. That we know of. Laura Ingram was on the air saying she thought it was going to be hundreds here in Louisiana that she had heard. But anyway, whatever it is, the people who are vetting them are not our friends. And we have no idea who these people are. This is a total sham. It's a mockery. And the president, I'd impeach him for this.
All right, Mike, now your response.
You should be ashamed of yourself. All of y'all should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm very proud of myself.
The
president should be ashamed of himself.
The FBI has been vetting these people. It's a year-long process.
Number one duty is to protect
You're just
the people.
lying, Carol. You're making crap up that you're getting from your other right-wing sycophants.
Comey said that he has no way.
Associated Catholic Charities, of which David Vitter's wife is general counsel, accepted the 14 people in New Orleans, so he makes it a campaign issue now because he's desperate.
You think you're trashing the FBI
these
director?
People have been on a list for years trying to get to the United States.
Oh, that's bull.
That is not.
The FBI director.
Absolute
how
fact.
do you know that they're not replacing them with people just coming over now? You have no idea. Nobody has any idea, including the FBI director.
Terror. Scaredy cat. You ever read the inscription on the Statue of Liberty? Give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses.
Not your terrorists.
Y'all are a bunch of cowards now.
Scared
of, as the president said, scared of grandmothers and kids.
Oh, right.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Saul
America
Alinsky,
the
right
brave,
there.
Bullshit.
Demonize, objectify, ridicule. The FBI director said he has no idea.
These are the people who are fleeing terror in their own countries. Their homes have been bombed. Their lives have been destroyed. And you say...
And one of them was in France bombing up people.
I mean, y'all are pathetic. You are just pathetic. Cowards, trying to gain political advantage out of it.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Would you ask the lady to stop speaking over the man, please? Thank you.
Okay, that was your whole comment.
Wow.
All right, well, thanks for that
All
interruption.
right, let's go back to the phone lines.
FBI, and he lies like that, I will speak over him. He speaks over me all the time. One time I do it and you call me out on it. Sorry. FBI Director Comey says they have no idea of the database, that they have nothing to go on.
Cite your source.
FBI Director
Cite
Comey.
your source. Who's making this quote up
in the
about
Wall
him?
Street Journal, in the Investors
Op-ed
Business
page,
Daily,
op-ed pages, not news stories.
Nope.
I will tell you this. The story that I am following, I have not received an answer to about the one man who was taken to Baton Rouge. Catholic Social Services did take him in. They helped him out. He stayed for a couple days. Catholic Social Services doesn't track anybody after that point. So no one can give an answer. I called 2 different people who are still tracking down. I've called Louisiana State Police. The man left the city of Baton Rouge to relocate. He did say he was relocating, but no one knows where he went. So at this particular point, we don't have an answer about that.
So now there's a manhunt. You want a
So
manhunt?
now you want to call Bernie a liar?
No, I'm
and
just
a coward?
saying that these are the facts.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. This is a nation of immigrants. This is a nation of immigrants.
I think everybody gets that.
Immigrants who
I'm just
assimilate.
saying that people, in terms of the situation of where people are going, we today do not have an answer for that, and we've been working 2 days to get an answer
Mike,
for
have
it.
you been to Paris? I've been to Paris several times. There are no-go zones, and that is the truth. That is no lie. The Parisians will tell you that. The police will tell you that. They do not go into those areas because they run the ghettos, the Muslim ghettos, on their own. Sorry.
They were in there
All right,
they bombed them, didn't they? They did bomb them, didn't they?
Let's go to the phone lines, y'all. All right, go ahead, caller.
Yeah, Mike, you had said earlier that all of the men that conducted the attacks in Paris were European. But I believe 1, if not 2, were from Syria, and at least one of them came there from the Syrian refugee program. So to say that we should allow these people into our country without knowing anything about them is dangerous.
Well, we're not allowing them in without knowing anything
caller.
about them. We're not just going picking up people off the streets in Syria. They go through a vetting process. Their background has been checked for over a year.
And I do want to tell you that Mike is correct on the vetting process. There is a vetting process that does go on.
It's inadequate.
So, but some have suggested it is inadequate.
Nothing would satisfy you. There's some people that nothing would satisfy them because, it's a political issue that you can whip up fear about.
Well,
and Bobby Jindal, of all people, Bobby Jindal, to be screaming about immigrants is so ludicrous and full of hypocrisy. I mean, it's just his hysteria. I mean, if Obama said...
Him and 29 other governors.
If Obama said he was for air, y'all would be against breathing. It's just
Bernie,
ridiculous.
You're just a coward.
You poor little scared.
All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, you're on Wingin' It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Just want to say, Mike was saying women and children. One of them that just blew up was a woman that just had a bomb on her that blew herself up in France. Was a woman. So
That's
women
exactly
do the blowing themselves up too. So what do you want to do?
What I said was grandmothers and children. Go ahead.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
All right,
They strap bombs to children, too, by the way.
We have to take a break.
Let's go ahead and take the break. When we come back, our third question of the day, talking about Governor Jindal. What do you think about him not endorsing anyone in the governor's race? We'll jump into that topic when we come back here on Wingin' It Wednesday on News Talk 96.5 K. This is Acadiana's Morning News. Bernadette Lee and Brandon Como, and it is Wingin' It Wednesday, which means Carol Ross and Mike Stagg are here in studio with us. We now move on to topic number 3, and it concerns Governor Bobby Jindal not endorsing anyone in the governor's race. Let's go to Mike Stagg first.
Well, I guess they both gave a big sigh of relief. Governor Jindal has a 70% disapproval rating among Louisiana voters. I think that's, they're still trying to talk about tracking. They're trying to track down the 30% who still think he has a favorable record.
They don't live here anymore.
I think if you look, I think it's interesting that he announced last night that he's suspending his presidential campaign. But I think that does not help his buddy David Vitter. They don't like each other very much. Mm-hmm. And Vitter, this goes back to 2007 when Bobby Jindal was doing a statewide swing, announcing his 2007 campaign for governor. That's when David Vitter was first having his national exposure problem with the D.C. Madam. And so he decided he's going to, after being holed up in Metairie for a week, he is leaving and going back to Washington. He's going to hold a big press conference the very afternoon that Bobby Jindal is flying into New Orleans for that stop on his campaign swing. Vitter's press conference started an hour before Jindal was going to arrive. He buried Jindal's announcement in the media coverage that day. And so I think this is a form of payback. It could be a form of payback. He was never going to endorse John Bel Edwards, and he was, I don't think he was realistically going to endorse Vitter either. But I think if you go back, you could say that his announcement of his decision last night, he could have done this a month ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, that his announcement last night was a bit of payback.
All right, we do remind you phone lines are open at 232-1542. Let's go to Carol.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats keep trying to hang Jindal around Vitter's neck, but, you realize their history. It's not there. I mean, they don't care for each other very much, and neither candidate would want. I mean, but the thing that's getting lost in all this is the records. You look at David Vitter's records, he's a consistent conservative, pro-growth, for business, etc. Every major business organization has given John Bel Edwards terrible marks. I mean, I was looking at this last night. Lobby, he's 25% with lobby, 15% with the home builders statewide. The Associated Builders and Contractors, who are the commercial builders, 0, gave him a 0. Oil and Gas Association, I think they gave him an 8. And the Federation of Independent Business, I don't know how he got up so high with them, but 32%. So people keep, the Dems are very wisely pitching his West Point, and forgetting his liberal voting record over the past 8 years and the $800 million in taxes that he helped to pass over the past few years. So anyway, neither one of them wanted the governor's endorsement, and he very wisely, I hope, stays out of it. I hope he stays out of it. We don't need another thing gumming up the works.
All right, let's go to Mike, and then we'll go back to the phone line.
Well, first of all, whatever taxes were passed during the Jindal administration. But
he's not running.
The thing to understand is that Louisiana Association of Business, and if you believe Louisiana is on the wrong track, which most voters do, then you must reject the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. They have dominated Louisiana politics, certainly in this century. They are responsible for the election of Mike Foster,
the governor, Mike,
and the legislature. Their policies.
The last 4 years they've been fighting the governor.
Their policy. Oh, Steve Wagasback is not fighting the governor.
For the last 2 years,
they are lockstep. If you like Bobby Jindal and you think Louisiana's in trouble, you look no further than Lobby. Look no further than Loga. Yes. You want $800 million? You want to know what's gutting UL Lafayette and LSU Eunice and the community colleges and technical colleges?
Yeah,
it's corporations not paying taxes. This is the giveaway program of the Jindal administration. Over $1 billion in exemptions in business taxes alone.
All right, let's go to the phone lines, get a call in. Caller, you're on Wingin It Wednesday. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking the call. It's kind of nice that y'all went from the Syrian refugees to Jindal, because it all kind of ties in. The Syrian refugees. Steve Jobs was a son of Syrian refugees. I'm sure there's one or two terrorists in there, but there's probably some smart kids that can make a clock out of a calculator. Maybe we ought to look for them smart kids and deport the Jindal voters and make room for some real people. Bush and Obama voters have gotten us here, and y'all point fingers back and forth. Some of us never voted for either one or Jindal. So y'all got us here. Maybe we shouldn't be listening to y'all. Have a good day.
Why don't you come on the air and talk about it a little bit?
All right, let's take one more phone call before we have to go to the break. Caller, you're on Acadian This Morning News. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of blame to go around.
Good morning.
Morning.
On the question about the refugees, it's very simple. First of all, I noticed Mike Stagg wasn't offering to take any of them into his house, number one. Number two, if you have 10,000 jelly beans and you know that 10 of them are poison, are you going to be asking to be the first one to take a handful of them? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and take our break right now. When we come back, we'll ask Mike and Carol, if you were elected governor, how would you improve the state?
Oh, man, that's going to be fun.
KPL News Time is 7:50.
Right now we have a traffic crash, Highway 93 at Rouban-Secours. That's Highway 93 at Rouban-Secours. West Broussard Road between Johnston and Touchette. That's West Broussard Road between Johnston and Touchette. We have a traffic crash, South Morgan and Albertsons Parkway. That's South Morgan and Albertsons Parkway. And the Northwest Evangeline Thruway at East 3rd. That's Northwest Evangeline Thruway at East 3rd.
KPL News Time is 7:53. This is Wingin' It Wednesday on News Talk 96.5 KPL. All right, final question to our panelists this morning. If you were elected governor, how would you improve the state? Carol, let's go to you first.
Oh, my goodness. Well, You know, they love to form blue ribbon commissions and panels and stuff like that. Well, I have my own idea of the perfect blue ribbon commission to get in there and just shred everything about the finances in the state. My blue ribbon panel: Treasurer Kennedy, C.B. Forgotten, Moon Griffon, former legislative auditor Dan Kyle, and my favorite good government SOB as described by Edwin Edwards, the now fully recovered legislator Ron Gomez. I would put those 4 on that and let them go to town.
You have to let Moon know on your way out that you've elected him now as part of your administration. All right, Mike, go ahead.
Well, the first thing would be to take Medicaid expansion so you can preserve community hospitals. It's just essential to keep those hospitals open in those rural communities which will be the ones that be affected if we don't get that money. They're hanging on by their fingernails right now. But the other thing would be to have a complete audit of the giveaways that the general administration has carried out over the past decade. I mean, all these incentives to business were based on the idea that if we help them come here, that we will grow our tax base. Our tax base has not grown; it's shrunk. And that's why we've had this ongoing series of budget cuts that have affected primarily higher education and healthcare. Then you've got to reform the budget process so that the burden of budget shortfalls doesn't fall exclusively on healthcare and higher education. I mean, we have an imminent crisis. It's going to be $800 million shortfall by the time the new administration takes office in January. It's $500 million right now. We're in a deep hole that's getting bigger. There's going to have to be a special session. Both John Bell Edwards and Vitter agree that there has to be a special session, in January or February to deal with this crisis. We need to make sure that we are getting the money we are owed and that the programs and incentives that have been deployed out there are being complied with, and that we're getting the return that we're due on those things.
So, Mike, you would endorse my 5-member panel because they could
really
get in there. They could really get in there and shred that budget the way you.
I'm not going to appoint 5 Republicans to a blue ribbon panel.
Yeah, but they can get in there and really study that budget, and they've been making these recommendations.
The budget's been
studied. Same recommendations that you're making. They've been making for years, right?
Look, this is bullshit.
The Streamlining Committee.
The Streamlining Commission is at fault. It is actually at fault for many of the problems we have right now. It was a Streamlining Commission.
They didn't follow any of the recommendations.
Yes, they did. They followed one. They consolidated severance tax audits. They moved it from the Department of Revenue to the Department of Natural Resources, and for 3 years did not collect any severance taxes from audits.
There you go. That's the problem, and that's what legislative auditor and these people have been saying for years.
All right,
Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it.
All right, KPL News Time is 7:56.